All right, so at this point, everybody should have their grid drawn in their sketchbook, which it should be 3 squares by 4 squares. They should be nice, even, equal squares. That's how this works. And you should also have your image with the grid over it. Now, you also need to make sure that it's the same amount of dimensions, or you know how to adjust it for the same amount of dimensions. So I've got 1, 2, 3 by 1, 2, 3, 4. Perfect. Same size. Now, I just printed mine out because I wanted y'all to be able to see how I went about doing this. And I wasn't able to show this and what's on my Chromebook at the same time. So, what you're going to do is the grid method kind of helps you work on just a little bit of your image at a time, and it kind of helps prevent you from making assumptions as far as what goes where. And like, well, I know there's a head and eyes, so I'm going to try to draw what I think a head and eyes look like. And that'll be really evident on this, where we see his eyes, but there's not really any detail. So the way that it works is you just focus on one square at a time. There's not anything to speak of here. I'll do something back there, but I'm not going to worry about that right now. So I'm just going to move on to that second square and see if I can get it blocked in. Now, whenever you're doing this, you want to try to make sure that you're not like doing like full shading as you go. You're going to start by laying it out. That way, if you mess something up, guess what? You're just erasing lines instead of values that you've laid down. So I'm going to go about, and I don't know if y'all can tell on this, but my line ends right here. So that top little part I'm not going to be working on. So this really works well because you can see you can make lines anytime the values change. So it's not like I'm drawing his hair. I'm trying to draw this weird shape on the outside. And if you get to an area where you're having trouble, you can always kind of mentally break your grid down a little bit more. So say if I'm having trouble trying to figure out where all the placement is, you can think like, well, I can divide that in half and that in half and almost have like, yes, a more complicated grid, but it'll kind of help with accuracy because I know the eye in this shadow is just going to be in this bottom corner over here. And in doing that, I can see that I've got this hairline over a little bit farther than it needs to be. So for this, I'm just using a regular pencil. You don't need shading pencils for this. If you want to sketch it in with them, that's fine, but we're not going to be doing any shading until we get your entire image on your paper. So now, just kind of drawing these different values. Because that's the name of the game with this project, is we are focusing on values and trying to recreate those values. So I'm going to try to show outline where that light value is, outline where the part of his brow is. I'm going to go ahead and see if I can outline this area here where it's going to be a little bit darker than the area around it. I'll come back and get the ear. And unlike some of your pictures that are like real like high definition, you can see that mine is not. And this is, I think this is probably from the 30s, so maybe the 40s, probably the 40s. But it is a much older picture, and that really shows in the graininess. Let's see. And then if I wanted to break this down more, and I'm going to kind of mentally do that so that I'm not steering y'all wrong as I'm kind of rushing through this. So that's showing me that this area needs to be moved down. Yeah. And then you can kind of extend your lines once you kind of double check them from the other side. And I find that's helpful because you're kind of like double checking your work as you go. And it kind of helps you make sure that everything you're trying to fit in certain areas fits well and like looks right. And then I'm going to go ahead and start blocking these values in just because. Alright, so now I'm going to move down to the next section, this square here. Let me readjust this. And this kind of gives me even more room to kind of double check what I've already done. Alright, and see, I'm kind of getting ahead of myself because I'm trying to draw what I see. But I'm like, oh, it's a nose, so I'm going to have to readjust that because I made that go down way too low. pencil and the eraser on this pencil's not great, but that's alright. It helps if you don't throw your pencil. But really trying to outline where these different valleys are is really going to help you whenever you get to the point where you are shading. And at this point, I feel like I've kind of shown y'all how to go about using the grid, doing each section. I've got a lot more work to do. I am not happy with that square at all, but you know what? I'm not going to have y'all watch me erase all this and try again. So I'm going to work on this. If you have any questions about the grid method or if you're having trouble, let me know. And we'll see how mine turns out as I keep working on it.